When I suggested that as a title, I didn't think they would actually use it. The bullshit detector. So, a little bit of my bio is I come from a really traditional like film and television background. I started making movies kind of in the early 2000s, and eventually I had a TV show on HBO that I wrote, directed, and produced, and I made a couple of feature films. Actually, the last feature film that I produced, I premiered here in Cannes. And kind of through that process of finding some success in the mainstream media world, I was really subjected to a lot of the politics of mainstream media, which I was not super into. Advertising is largely the same way. It's like this gigantic machine that stands between your ideas and then the actual realization of the ideas or your audience. There's this gigantic filter. And I kind of refer to that filter as like the bureaucratization of the spirit of the artwork, or the bureaucratization of the spirit, the motivation of the work that you're making. And so because of that, I was presented with a lot of options. This is like 2010. This is the same year that my HBO series premiered, and it was the same year that my feature film won an Independent Spirit Award, got distributed. It was like really like the height of success that I had ever achieved, the highest level of success I'd ever achieved in the mainstream media world. And I was really miserable because I was just sick of dealing with all the politics. So I sort of like packed my bags and ran to the warm, welcoming embrace of YouTube. My agent was not super psyched about that. But what I liked about YouTube was that there was no filter. YouTube is sort of this platform, this opportunity where you can connect with an audience and you don't have to ask anyone's permission. The trade-off for that is that there's no sort of infrastructure built in for reaching a big audience. HBO has a built-in audience of whatever it is, 30 million subscribers or 100 million viewers. But my first YouTube video launched with, I think, 0 subscribers. And my 5th YouTube video launched with like 8 subscribers. And I remember like, it was late 2010 when I was like up in my studio super late. And I literally had a TV show on HBO that I starred in that was like this big show, and I'm like making YouTube videos, and I had less views on my YouTube videos than like most of my kids' friends in 7th grade had on their YouTube videos. And it was a pretty like, it was a hit to the ego. But I kind of kept my head down, and I kept making videos on YouTube, and eventually found an audience. And the audience that I have now on YouTube eclipses the audience that I had on HBO, not like 2 or 3 times, but like 10 or 12 times. And that audience is growing exponentially. And now when, when I get TV shows thrown at me, or options to do TV shows, or my agents bring to me these really great opportunities to work back in the mainstream media world, which ironically is only because of the success I have on YouTube, I sort of look at what the benefits might be to working back in the mainstream media world. And they don't have much that they can offer me that I wasn't able to sort of build on my own on YouTube. And being able to control the distribution platform in addition to the content itself is sort of like, it's the dream for someone like me, someone who just wants to make. A good example is I posted a video this morning, and this video is about this suitcase that I bought on Friday. And it was like a really expensive suitcase that's just a total piece of because there's no such thing as like a good suitcase. And I appropriated this suitcase with like a hammer and like all kinds of spray paint, all these other tools, so it would like fit my skateboard on it in a way that it wouldn't count as an extra piece of luggage on the airplane. In any event, I thought that warranted sharing. So I made a video about a suitcase that can now carry a skateboard, and I posted that on YouTube this morning. I think it has like 50,000 views in the last 2 hours or something. But like, where in the world could someone like me possibly justify making a movie about a skateboard that fits onto a suitcase and then finding an audience that big? So I didn't really have a plan for making a living when I walked away from mainstream media and started making movies on YouTube. You can monetize on YouTube, but you get pretty spoiled making a show for HBO. And, you know, I was pretty flush in 2010 because of the show with HBO. They pay really well. And when you have money, it's a great opportunity to sort of figure things out. So money was not a priority of mine when I started really focusing on YouTube, which is a really luxurious, fantastic place to be, because I had no plans for sort of monetizing my work. And the monetization platform on YouTube, I think, is great for a lot of creators, but for someone like me who has a production company and employees and a staff and all kinds of overhead and bills and like a kid who's really expensive, it's not a viable form of income yet. So I had always worked in advertising, and I worked in advertising in a really traditional way. Like, you know, I'd get hired to direct 30-second spots, which is something that I still don't understand. I will never understand. It is like a total scam, hiring directors to direct 30-second spots, wherein they're like, I remember being given like a storyboard, a script, and then it had like 30 people on set that were literally watching a live feed of everything I shot, telling me to tell my DP to move a camera like 2 inches. Like really, really soon, Google will invent a robot that will do what I was paid so much money to do for so many years. So that whole experience, though lucrative, was never something that really excited me. I always say, like that line from the Beastie Boys, working as a commercial director, it's like a nice place to visit, but a better place to rob. Because I always felt like I was just sort of stealing, showing up and like pretending to direct and letting the DP do it. I wasn't very good at it, but the reason why I was able to get those gigs directing TV commercials was because of my YouTube content. So as my YouTube content grew, along came these sort of bigger opportunities to do more sort of adventurous advertising work. And this sort of crescendoed in like 2011. Nike hired me to make 3 videos for the launch of their Fuel Band. You guys know what the Fuel Band is? You know that they canceled the whole Fuel Band program really recently? Anybody here from Nike? Can't get a straight answer from those guys. Like, why would they kill it? It was so awesome. Owen still has one. Yeah, these guys still got one. In any event, they hired me to make 3 videos to sort of coincide with the launch of that. They're doing some traditional media. They wanted some fresh stuff, some story-focused stuff. So, you know, I pitched them the 3 videos, a fairly traditional pitching process, but it was much more pitching short films than it was pitching commercials. And the intended sort of landing place for these videos was my YouTube channel. And the first 2 videos were really successful, really great. Nike loved them. They gave me like their big $100 million athletes to work with, and they didn't ask a lot of questions. We got into a little bit of trouble, and then I had to have a babysitter with me for the rest of the time with the athletes, but short of that, we didn't get in too much trouble. Videos were really successful. But when it came time to make the 3rd video, I was sort of exhausted of following these scripts that I had written, but I was sort of exhausted of the process. And the 3rd video was the lowest budget of the 3 videos. So I called my editor, who, a guy named Max Joseph. Anybody here watch the show Catfish on MTV? Okay, Maxie's like the gray-haired guy who's not Neve on that show. And he wasn't like a teeny bopper celebrity then. He was just like my best friend and movie editor. Anyways, I called Maxie and I was like, Max, let's not make the commercial for Nike. Like, let's just take the budget and let's blow it. And he's like, what do you have in mind? And I was like, let's just do something I've always wanted to do, which is run around the world showing up at airports with no plane ticket. And we'll just buy a ticket wherever the plane's going next. And he was like, you're going to get fired? And I was like, but they already paid me. And he was like, okay, let's do it. So we did that, and we came back from this like crazy trip, and Nike was like, whatever you want to do, Casey, just make sure you make us a video. And we had like 40 hours of footage and no clue what this video could be. And in the end, we delivered them a video that had no product in it. I don't think it had any mention of Nike in it. It certainly had no swoosh in it. But they were hip to it. They were cool with it. And that video is, I think it still is. And if it's not, I'm always going to say that it is, because it was for like 3 straight years, the most watched video Nike has ever put on YouTube. So because of all of those factors, because it was like not just a video that I made that was for YouTube, that was on my channel, but it was a video that I made that had some autonomy, at least ostensibly had some autonomy from both the advertising industry and the client itself, that sort of opened up some doors. And then other companies came to me and started saying, can you do something like that for us? And this is where like this idea of the bullshit detector comes in. because what I describe as the bullshit detector is something that we're all privy to here. We're pretty privy to it. But my kid, the red shirt there, Owen, he's 16, his bullshit detector is way more sensitive than our bullshit detector. And like the generation after his, their bullshit detector is gonna be way more sensitive than his bullshit detector. And what the bullshit detector is this idea that like, when I was a kid and I consumed media, like maybe I'd read a magazine, probably not. It was mostly watching television. And like during Nickelodeon, when a 30-second commercial would come on during the commercial breaks, I would watch it because I didn't want to miss like what happened next on whatever Nickelodeon show I was watching. So you'd sort of subject yourself to it. And I don't remember any of those commercials. Most of them went through my head. Maybe a couple of them I liked and remembered. But most of them were just dismissed. So now, Owen, who's my age, when his media isn't watching TV for maybe 2 hours a day or whatever my parents would tolerate, he's in front of a screen something like 70, 80% of his waking life, whether it's his cell phone, the computer, his iPad, sitting on a plane. He's constantly in front of the screen, so he's inundated with media. And when you're inundated with media like that, you're constantly being fed advertisements. Like you're looking at your personal feed and you're seeing what your friends are up to on Facebook, but to the right are advertisements. You're watching a YouTube video, but before that YouTube video, there's a 5-second pre-roll that he clicked next as fast as he could, but he still was subjected to 5 seconds of it. And to the right of that are 12 suggested videos, 2 of which are advertisements. So with this inundation of video, this bullshit detector, what is bullshit and what is real, becomes hypersensitive. And the bullshit, it doesn't get viewed by us or by him as like, oh, this is terrible, why am I watching this? It gets the only thing worse than bad when it comes to media. The only thing worse than bad, like you've got good up here, you've got bad down here, then all the way down here, you've got the very worst media could ever be, and that's invisible. It means you didn't even recall seeing it. Like it wasn't horrible, it wasn't anything like that, it wasn't a terrible commercial, you just didn't even see it. It's just invisible to him. So with a bullshit detector that sensitive, the only way to kind of penetrate that, the only thing to make something he'll actually remember, will actually remember, is to make something that people actually want to see. So this was a Nike video that was seen by, whatever it is, 12 million people, 10 million people, because they wanted to see it. There was zero media buy behind this. In fact, Nike had an entire media buy plan for this. They were going to do a hashtag, Be Like Casey, where you win a trip around the world and like all this kind of campy stuff. And 12 hours after the launch, they called me and said, we're canceling everything. Don't tweet out any of those hashtags. The whole media plan has been canceled because we think the organic growth of this is going to be far more powerful. And it was. That received more media than any other campaign Nike has done as far as press, as far as me being on TV and nightly news and morning shows. So they wanted to talk to me about this crazy thing that I did. So it penetrated in a way that sort of broke through that bullshit detector. And that has become the only kind of advertising that I do. And what that looks like is a client will come to me and say, sort of, here's our objective. So I did like a gigantic campaign for Mercedes-Benz last year. I very recently did a campaign for it's embarrassing, I can't remember, for J. Crew, where they came to me and they have a new suit. And it's not, when I say they, it's not their agency or not even a creative director from the company. It's literally Mickey Drexler, the CEO, and Jenna Lyons, the president of the company. And they say, we love your work. We have this suit. What would you do? And it was like, you know, why don't we make a video? And I think I wrote them like a 1-paragraph sort of pitch, and then a budget, which is always just a blank sheet of paper with a number at the bottom. Because the truth is, I don't really know what the ins and out of what I'm going to do is. You know, with J. Crew, it was a suit that was made to travel and it doesn't get wrinkles. So I said, okay, well, let me do something that's like a guide to traveling. That's a video I've always wanted to make and I would have made without you. So if you're gonna bankroll it, let's do it, I'll wear your suit. But I didn't get into the nuances of it because I didn't know. And the reason why I didn't know is by design, is because, you know, with the Nike videos, when I was following my script, they got exactly what I said they were going to get. But on the video that I went way off script, the video where I did something where I myself didn't know the outcome, this level of spontaneity, this really like organic spontaneity, this sense of discovery that was all contained within the video was real. It wasn't bullshit. I wasn't making that up. We really had no idea what we were doing when we were running around the world. Like, we really did get stuck in some shady places in sub-Saharan Africa because those planes only go to like 3 places. Like, all this stuff is real. So trying to bottle that is almost impossible. The only way I can do that is by giving you a pitch that's 1 paragraph long, is by giving you a budget that just has a number on it. And it requires a willingness to take a big chance from the client. But, you know, that campaign for J. Crew was a kind of a huge hit for them. I think it was one of their biggest campaigns they've done. At least that's what they tell me. I think they started saying that to me because I know I like to hear that. So, but I'll just keep repeating it, pretending that was the case. But it was a really successful campaign. So my approach to these videos is always the same. It's always an idea, core idea, and that idea it's a mutually beneficial idea. It's an idea that I think will sort of perpetuate my brand and my identity and the things that I've come to represent. So my audience won't freak out when they see that I'm doing something for a client. They won't call me a sellout. They'll just think it's another great video, even though I'm very upfront in the fact that it's for someone else. And then on the other side of it, I do everything I can to make it as flattering as possible for the brand. I never make commercials. I never make videos about a product. I have no idea how to sell a product. In fact, this huge campaign I did for Mercedes-Benz last year, in the very first meeting with them, I said, I don't know how to sell a car. And I remember, I think it was Razorfish that had brought me into that meeting. The guy from there was just like, is he saying that? The truth is, I don't know how to sell a car. I don't know how to sell a suit, and I don't know how to sell like an electronic bracelet that lights up when you jog. But I'm really good with selling ideas, because behind ideas are stories. Ideas can be real. Like, I believe in this idea of making it count and just do it. Like, those are things that respond to me. The Nike Fuel Band, I think, is a pretty good product, but like, I already have a watch and like hair tie. Like, there's no space on my wrist, so I'm not going to wear it. Sorry, Nike. I like Mercedes, but I really like my truck more, so I don't actually drive a Mercedes. But the idea behind these companies are ones that I can get behind. So I want to show you guys a video today and wrap things up with a video. And I like to show this video because I think this video, of all the movies that I've ever made for a client, certainly for me, it's one that I'm sort of the most proud of. And this is a video that was made for a company, a big fat company with big fat rich white men at the top that probably benefited from my video. And this was to promote a movie that I'm sure made a lot more money because of my video. But this is a video that I made $0 off of. In fact, this is a video that I lost money making. And the story behind this video goes, 20th Century Fox had contacted me, and they're like, hey, Ben Stiller's new movie is coming out. Ben loves your work. He'd love for you to make a promotional video like your Nike video. Which, when I hear that, I just like start cutting the wrist. Like, I'm so sick of hearing you want to see the Nike video again. His movie called Walter Mitty is about a guy who goes for it in life. Well, you make a video about going for it in life. So like, I responded the same way I always respond to proposals like this, by saying how much. And they said, we have 25 grand. So I was like, thanks, but no thanks, not really into this. And then I kind of hung up. And that was like a day after that gigantic typhoon had hit the Philippines. And I always have this fantasy, and it's like, I think like this fantasy is rooted in altruistic ambitions, but it's also like a little bit of like a superhero fantasy, like that scene where like Robert Downey Jr. is like Iron Man. He's like shooting the terrorists, like not like some fictional bad guy, but like the actual terrorists. Whenever something really bad happens in this world, I always wish that I could go there and fix it, or at least do something. And I remember hearing about these images and hearing about the events and seeing these images from the Philippines, and just kind of sitting up that night and thinking like, $25 is so much money. And I just said no to it because I didn't want to make another video. But what would I do with that 25 grand? If they just gave me that 25 grand, like, what would I do with it? And given in the world of advertising, 25 grand is probably less than Google's spending today on smoothies. But it's still $25,000. And like, you know, I come from a very sort of poor background. When Owen was born, we were on welfare. We lived in a trailer park. So 25 grand sort of kept me up at night. And what I ended up doing was I called them back the next day and I said, look, I'll take your 25 grand if you'll let me donate 100% of it to the victims of the typhoon. And they were like, how does that benefit us? Like, why would we possibly do that? And I said, I don't know, but I'll make a video about giving this money away. And I don't know what the video is going to look like, because I don't know how I'm going to give the money away. I've never had 25 grand to give away before. But I'll make you a video. Maybe it'll benefit the movie. Maybe it'll flatter the movie. But I don't know. The only way I'm willing to kind of sign on to this is if you'll sort of give me that check and not ask any questions. And they did. That's what they agreed to do, 20th Century Fox. There's actually one woman at 20th Century Fox that was like, I know your work, and I think that this is worth it. And if this doesn't go down, I'll find a place to hide the page that I signed, the piece of paper that I signed okaying you getting this budget. So that was that. Now, I'm going to have them play the video now, but to give you guys a little bit of context, know that everything in this video, none of this was specifically intended. And there's so much backstory behind this video because we shot we probably shot 100 hours of footage and the video is 4 or 5 minutes long. But we had no idea. The money showed up and we're like, how do we give this away? And giving away $25,000 is really hard to do. Nonprofits wouldn't take it because they're like, but this is for a company to benefit, like we don't want any part of that. It was really hard to give away this money. And I sort of omit that part of the story from the film, but know that it was like 24 hours of being on the phone trying to give away 25 grand and no one would take it that led us to what we do in the video. You guys want to see the video? Or you want me to keep just yapping? Okay, play that video. I'm gonna sit over there. Okay, so this is the actual correspondence. Dear Casey, 20th Century Fox is releasing a new movie, The Secret Life of Walter Mitty. We want to run a campaign under the concept, Live Your Dreams. The collective theme of this initiative will be to motivate, inspire, and give people a catalyst to do something they've never done. We'd like to know if you'd be interested in creating a video about living your dreams. And this is the actual response I sent to them. Here's my concept. Give me the budget, I'll go to the Philippines and spend every penny helping people in need. Okay, so
what I'd really like to do is...
Bye, thank you for your help. So we're gonna try to clean this place out. How many of these do you have? This is what the secret life of Walter Mitty's promotional video budget looks like. So we just arrived. We're unloading the buses with the help of all these people. No idea who these people are. I guess this is the house we're going to be staying in tonight. There's no electricity or anything here, but they do have generators. That's 500 bags, so we have 500 more to go. I don't think that we bought enough food. So I had at the end of that movie, I had just a card up that said, "Go see The Secret Life of Walter Mitty." And when Ben saw this before the movie came out, he called me, and he was like, "I really like the movie. You can take off that card at the end," which I was like really psyched about. So that was sort of the only call to action, saying like, "Go see this movie," because they let us do this. And Ben said that we could get that out of there. And you know, I made that movie without ever seeing The Secret Life of Walter Mitty. I made that movie without any really consideration or ambition to try to benefit something else. I made that movie because I thought sharing that story would humanize this struggle, and I thought it was a great way to, you know, give away a bunch of money that otherwise would be spent on some other stupid piece of invisible advertising. But it was the story in that really resided with people. And in the end, that was seen, you know, several million times on YouTube, and Variety credited the success, the box office success of Walter Mitty in part to that movie, which is really interesting considering that a $20 million marketing budget behind that film. That's it, right? Because you held up that 2 minutes to go sign like at least 2.5 minutes ago. Do we doing questions? Does anybody have any questions that they'd like to ask me? Because I would be more than happy to answer them. Yes. What did I shoot that on? That's my least favorite question, but that's a good question about that movie in particular, because my camera had broken, and we bought like this camera called the Canon 70D, which is a really cheap consumer camera. It was like, I think $1,000, but it was the only SLR that would autofocus without touching it, because there was no crew. It was my friend Oscar and me. It's why like all the shots in that video are fixed shots. It's because we would just throw the camera down, hit record on the tripod, and then go like run a self-run like rescue mission. So that was it. It was shot on one Canon 70D, and we had a GoPro too, but we never got the thing to work except for that last shot, which we used for the title sequence. Just a side note, like we left all of this out, but it was really gnarly in Tacloban. Like we hooked up with these Filipino mafia dudes who were like the guys who ran the town, who said they'd keep us safe, and they were like really good to us. And we stayed in their really fancy house, mansion house on the beach, that all the windows had been blown in, the pool was filled up with sand, like destroyed. And we woke up, and I remember we woke up, and Oscar was like, get the camera. And we took a butter knife and went like that and scraped off all these black bugs, like Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom style. And then that same night, the neighbor's house was robbed at gunpoint, people looking for food. Now, we had all the food in the town in our house. So that night, like the dude who was looking after us, who I swear was like a really good dude, came in with a box of water bottles, had 4 water bottles in it, and then wrapped in newspaper were 2 MAC-10 machine guns with 2 clips each. And it's like funny, and like we have one picture of Oscar holding them like this, but they were like legit machine guns given to us to shoot people in the case someone came in with guns to shoot us. So it was like it was a very, very scary situation. No electricity, no police, very little. There was no authority in the entire town we were there. But yeah, it was a kid in 70D. Any other questions? Yes.
What was the reason you chose to leave all those parts out? Because they sound really exciting.
Sure. Well, I think that's like in storytelling, it's always what you leave out that makes a story good, not what you put in. It's like we all have that like obnoxious like sorority friend girl who takes like 45 minutes to tell some story that you lose the point of before she even gets to the end. So it's about keeping it concise, and that's the struggle in making a movie like this when you write in the edit. Like I write the story in the edit because you're like, what is the story? Is the story about us and like how dangerous this was for us personally? Is the story about us helping these people? Is the story about how 20th Century Fox let us do this? So when choosing what the story was, you have to sort of prioritize, and a lot of that stuff just goes by the wayside. And because like some of the aspects of what happened to us were so sensational, like Oscar's face swelled up like the Elephant Man's because those bugs came out of the mattress. They're all over his arm, no big deal. They're also all over his face. So like half the day Oscar had this like swollen face. But that's such a sensational thing that it would have distracted from the narrative, which was just that, this opportunity to help these people. And 25 grand couldn't do a lot. Like it was like, 10,000 meals and, whatever else, the tools. But this movie really like ignited a lot of other charity work, a lot of people donating a lot of money to benefit the victims of the typhoon. So we think to sort of dilute that aspect of the story would not have sort of been doing anyone any favors, and maybe would have kind of marginalized the really important part of the story, which wasn't us having machine guns. It was that these people needed help. Yes, sir.
Is that going to be the new Nike now, of like do nonprofit, find ways to help, use marketing money in a new way?
I mean, I think it's a novel idea. I think like the question was, is that the new model to use marketing money to help people in a novel way? I think that like there's so much waste in advertising. I think there's an equal amount of waste in Hollywood, but there's so much waste that if there's a way to sort of skim some of that fat to help people and have helping people maybe even benefit whatever it is that you're advertising. If there's a way to find symbiosis there that's not exploitative, I think it would be great. I don't know how to do that. This was an accident. Wish I knew how to do that. I hope somebody figures that out because there are opportunities there. Like I said, like there's just so much money floating around in advertising. If 1% of that, if a percent of that were to sort of be drafted in a way to help people, I think that could be, I think it could be great. Do it. Any other?
Did you receive any negative feedback on what you did? Like you used people's
Yeah, of
trouble
course.
to promote the movie?
Of course. And it's funny because that's one more. That's like the idea of the bullshit detector. Like something like that, at its heart, what it really was, like the grit behind that movie was the fact that like they couldn't get me the funds to do this before we went. So there was a point in time where I had $27,000 in debt on my Amex before they had even greenlit this movie, before I had a contract from them. She said on the phone, we're going to do this, we'll get you the money. But it took them 5 days to write the contract, and it took them another 10 days to get me the money. By the time the money came in, we had already been back in New York for 5 days. Like, it had to happen then. So the truth behind this movie was like a tremendous amount of risk, not just to my wallet, but like in our lives, and like it was a very scary thing. We took no paycheck. We didn't even pay for the air flights. We had travel taken care of. It's sort of a slush fund from 20th Century Fox. So like, the integrity behind this movie could not have been more real. So when people sort of second-guessed it, it was definitely, it was a tough pill to swallow, but I think that is people's bullshit detector sort of crashing. It's like going off, but they don't know if the bullshit detector should go off. They don't know if this is bullshit or if this is something real. And I think that kind of confusion, because people aren't used to seeing something like this, sort of made them question it. But it was a very little percentage. In fact, I would say the vast majority of not just people who saw this, but people who activated in some way because of this movie, it was very positive. So the outcome was very positive. But there's always going to be haters. Haters going to hate. Would we have one more, or is that it? Anybody else have one more question? Okay, yes.
How often do you reuse footage? I mean, looking at the intro shots with New York and other films that you've made, you often have a lot of the impressions of just the atmosphere and everything setting the scene. How often do you use stuff from previous projects?
Not enough, almost never. In fact, it's just so easy to shoot, and I live in Manhattan, so like those shots of the city were like, what's the opening scene? Like it can't be my face much longer. Like this face, believe it or not, cannot hold an audience for like a full minute. We need something to show where we are. And this idea that it was happening at night, because that was when we like really were like, let's go, go, go. So that was when we got back. You just go, something everyone here should know. If you want to get really good shots of New York City, don't go to the Empire State Building observation deck. You go to the 30 Rock observation deck, where you're allowed to bring a monopod, not a tripod. So you bring your tripod, you rubber band the legs together, you get up to the top, you cut the rubber bands, you extend the legs, you get your shots, put it back together, and then leave. So that's how we got those shots. But I very infrequently recycle shots. I don't know why. I guess it's just always an opportunity to go shoot something new, so I don't see much of a point in. Yeah, there's a different feeling behind it, and there's surprisingly little overlap. And also, like, because I like to write and the edit so much, there's always something that happens that's very organic when you go out with the camera. Sort of marginalize that or mitigate that by just recycling, I don't think would really benefit anything. Okay, thank you guys.